Thanks everyone for sticking it out. Last presentation of the day, so I know we're going to be the thing keeping everyone away from beers and food. So I also wanted to mention, and he's not in the introduction. So with me here as well is Phil Nagel, full stack GIS developer with Bolton and Menk. And as mentioned, my name is Jim Mertz. I'm a GIS project manager in Raleigh. So that's who we are, what we do. So Bolton and Menk, we're a full service civil design firm, but within our GIS group, obviously with that civil background, you're supporting a variety of public infrastructure type projects. And then our GIS team is also, we're Esri business partner, and we're doing the full implementation of Esri products throughout a lot of local government agencies. We do a lot of field data collection. And what we're going to talk a lot about today is the photography that's associated with all the projects that we're working on. But there's a lot of other things that Phil does, but this is one of the cool things. And so, as we mentioned, photography, and the presentation a little bit earlier, Laura was talking about how more photos is always better. And so one thing that we've seen throughout our company's history is we're taking a lot of photos in the field, not just with, a survey or asset inventory or collection, but prior to a roadway project. We're doing a lot of existing conditions photography. Anytime you go out in the field, we're encouraging people to take photos. It's always easier when you get back to the office, you're like, oh man, where was that again? So one of the things that we've been able to do is, extract all that information out of our phones, plot those on a map, and we have a variety of tools that we've been using for a number of years that are helping us collect that existing conditions information. And, one of the things that we've done to just automate this process, Windows Explorer, we dump photos into a folder. We have a tool that just automates plotting those on a map so that we can easily share that information. But for those that know, I'm sure many of you know that there's a geoprocessing tool that Esri makes available that can take that information about location. So there's information on your phone with all photos if you have location services enabled. That's the asterisk. But yeah, if you have that enabled, it'll show you the direction, the date, the time, all that information plus an XY coordinate. So those can all be plotted on a map. We use that very frequently. We also partner, pair with the GPS unit. But here's a project where you can just see a tremendous amount of photography. This is before the project so it's color coded. Before project, during project, after project. Thousands and thousands of photos just on one roadway project. So we're very, familiar with this process, but you're taking photos of existing conditions, issues. Was this mailbox hit before the project? No, that was definitely hit by the contractor. So it's just good to have that information. But one of the things that we've started to explore more and more is that 360 photography and the photo collection. Many people are familiar with it with, Google Street View or Bing Maps or whatever that might be. How can we use this for that existing condition assessment? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But that's two different types. So we do over the surface, under the surface. Different tools we use in both places. So I'm just going to briefly touch on over the surface. So 360 photo collections. You can have a tool mounted on a vehicle, has a GPS coordinate attached to it, drive down your roads. It takes a photo at every, you can set the setting, how many ever seconds, and it's just going to take photos. And so then you can eliminate, if there's some, like you parked at a stop sign for a bit, you had some duplicates, eliminate some of those. But a really easy way to just kind of automate existing conditions assessment. And then that photo is kind of a fully immersive 360 photo. You can pan around and look at it. What we've been using is this Insta360 Pro. So like I said, it's primarily used for these Street View type collections. It's a good tool for this, but it's not going to be the one that we're going to use for the manhole inspections. So we also can do that same exact tool where it's more of that Google Street View type environment, but you can do this with drone 360 photo collection. So we use a program called Drone Deploy. It has an automated flight path or a flight tool for these type of 360 photos, and it just stitches together a photo, and it just sits there in one spot, and then it moves to the next spot, and it takes a 360 photo. So really cool tool, and then we took a viewer to be able to view that information, but a good tool for existing conditions assessment. So what we're here to talk about today is 360 manhole collections. So one thing that we've noticed is that we've been doing a lot of these, asset inventory and assessments, but, if there's a NASCO certified manhole inspector, they're rarely trailing or walking with your surveyor in the field. And so how could we close the gap between those people that, the engineers or whatever that might be that are certified for manhole inspections and the field staff that are out there collecting it? So the tool that we've been implementing, this Ricoh Theta 360 camera, it's about $1,000 out the door, $1,500 when we start to like upfit it with some stuff. Talk a little bit about that. But a really simple tool to use. It has its own app that you pair with your phone or your tablet that you're using for collection. That allows those photos to join to your field maps. So talk a little bit about that. So 360 manhole collections. So we are just going to show it a little bit here, and then we're going to go in and Phil's going to show it. I'm just going to talk a little bit about some best practices. We've been through this a bunch. We've learned some hard lessons. There's been a lot of these $1,000 cameras that have fallen right down into the pool water. So we've also learned that obviously you're going into that dark environment. So you can see here that that light thingamabob. We have a bunch of nerds, obviously, that work with us, but we 3D printed a little plastic attachment to our pole that we mounted a bunch of LED lights on. So that allows us to get the proper lighting that gets the good, photography that's required for these types of projects. Because you got to be able to see in those cracks and see how deep they are and all that stuff. So good lighting is critical for this. Those poles that we're mounting on it, they extend down. So a lot of times in some places, we're getting depths of 20, 30 feet. We need to be able to have a long extending pole. I would say we also, like I mentioned, inspect those frequently. They do break. And then when they break, $1,000 cameras going down there. There is on the Theta, they've been saying that they're going to have a waterproof cover for these. It's as soon as it comes out, we're on it. But yeah, and then as mentioned, we're pairing these. In this case here, we're doing this with a EOS Gold arrow. So people might be familiar with that. Pretty high accuracy, but it is a mapping grade GPS. So you could also pair this with survey grade as well. But another best use scenario, and you'll see this in our demo, we're often dropping a grade rod down in the hole when we do the photo collection, so you can see that crack at 4.5 feet down, 6.8 feet down. So you have the grade rod in there during the collection. So just a little bit about the workflow. So like I said, there's an app for the Theta. You join it with your phone through Bluetooth. When you're doing your field collection in as we saw, in field maps or survey 123, what you're just going to do, instead of using your camera phone, you use that Theta app. It's going to collect the image, and you're going to attach it in it goes to your photos. And so you just go to the most recent photo, and that's going to be the one you're going to be attaching to your field collection. So now we're going to go into the most dreaded words in presentation history, but a live demo.
So we're going to give this a go here. All right, so this profile. So yeah, I want to show a couple of different ways that we use this application. I'm not going to show the above ground stuff, but it's you kind of saw some screenshots of that. But so the way we set it up specifically is to allow us to have it either deployed basically standalone. So all you have is this application. It has all the information contained with it, and you never need to go to ArcGIS Online or any other mapping platform to use this. So that's really good for like small one-off type projects. This one here, I think there's maybe 8 structures that we did here. So that's a good example of that. We also have it set up to where we can link it to other mapping platforms. Obviously, ArcGIS Online is a great example. I'll show that. So one of the kind of standard operating procedures for these that we've come up with is that we've decided we need to have photos in a certain interval taken within each structure. So usually we start actually at the very top, and in this case, you can still outside, so you can see the surroundings, see the top of that structure and all that. One of the features we added to this is this depth gauge, and yeah, for some reason it's not rendering correctly on this screen. I think because of the scaling with the projector here. But basically, it just gives you these little tick marks, and they are grouped by structure. And so we could essentially walk our way down this manhole. And so as I click on the next lower one, it's going to take me just a little bit further in. And now I can, inspect the growth here. Keep going down. See just the level of detail we get from these 360 photos. Kind of like Jim said. Here's the grade rod. And then walk our way through. So we get all the way to the bottom. So we can get a really good detailed overview. Yeah. So like I said, it is designed to be kind of a standalone application as well. So it has a map inset contained within it. So here we see it's highlighting the current structure. The other ones are available as well, so I can just go through any other ones. Internet is a little bit slow here. Each of these 360 photos is like 15 megabytes, so it is noticeable. But yeah, so we can walk through, we have a base map switcher and all that. So some basic mapping features are in there, even in this standalone version. We can even pick the map full screen if we want to navigate a little bit easier that way. Yeah, so like I said, the other kind of approach that we take, especially with clients that we manage their utilities for in GIS. So a lot of the time we maintain GIS applications for them, and then as we do these inventories and assessments, we will link these photos into their GIS for them. So here's an example. This one's actually using GeoCortex, not ArcGIS Online, but nonetheless, you'll get the idea. And so basically, we would have for any of these structures that we have in our map, we would just have a link that would take us. So it takes us to specifically this structure. Yeah, so I think what actually happened here is they could not open it. So they just have a photo outside of it. So it does support regular photos as well, not just 360 photos. Let's go to a different one that we could open. So now it takes us inside. So in this case, we just have, I think, one inside photo, one of our earlier endeavors. And then again, so in this case, we did always take one outside. So we have that same availability of multiple photos, whether they're 360 or not. If you all in there. There's also some filtering. I don't. Any of these really only have one layer in them, but we do have quick, so we can filter by. In this case, we only have one layer, but if we have multiple layers, so if we had like sanitary manholes, we have storm manholes, storm catch basins, things like that, then we could narrow that down by the structure type or the layer, however that's organized as well.
gonna just do one more slide here. But so so as with any new technology, things like that, there's always room for improvement, and we've learned a lot of lessons. So as we kind of showed there, that our early iterations we were taking one singular panoramic photo, and then now we've understood that you can take photos going down and stitch it into more of a continuous image, and then have these photos linked regularly at regular intervals. But we also understand that there's a lot of different clients' needs. And, one of the things that is a little more difficult with this is that, for example, the idea of the measure down. So you measure your rim elevation, and then you take a grade rod and you're measuring your inverts off that grade rod. It's not the most accurate. So there's a lot of new technologies that are coming out right now. So Sewer AI is an example that uses this same, well, it actually uses 360-degree video that will be used from these same devices. Generates a rendered 3D model that's a little bit more accurate. It's more like your ortho stitch that you have in your UAV imagery that people are used to, that generates a better surface. There's also another program that's a laser scanner that people are probably more familiar with in the LiDAR realm as well, that you can dip down into the manhole, and then you're able to get a little bit more accurate invert elevation. But like we understand with LiDAR information, that is, if there's water in the bottom, that's going to impact your laser scanning. So what we've often said is that where we understand GIS and our understanding of the world is going, is that we want to be able to develop, a accurate representation of what reality is and be able to bring that into the office. So we're going to be looking at, a variety of different solutions that allow us to more, in depth and see these visually, see manholes, see the utility structures underneath it. And, I think a lot of people have been exploring the ideas of AR and VR, and we've been taking some of those utility networks and putting the actual elevations and then being able to see them underneath the ground. So what we think is the next step is going to be a variety of these tools. They're going to be able to provide not just a visual, but also accurate spatial information to understand the true depth and the true diameter and the true condition assessment. So that's a little bit about, 360 cameras and how we're using those for photo and inspection. Any questions? Joel.
So I was just going to ask, but you kind of answered it already, what the next steps were if you guys are going to be utilizing LiDAR. So I do see that it's going to be part of the process. But is there a reason that you guys use a pole instead of like a winch to lower the camera down? Or is it due to like time? Is it faster to use a pole rather than kind of like a winch or something that would be a little more stable?
Yeah, so in general, with most of the products, you're trying to be as efficient as we can, and time on site. So you mentioned the LiDAR scanners. The LiDAR scanners do operate on a winch type pulley. You set it over the top of the manhole, and it does drop down. But that does add, significant time at each structure. So you're talking, goes from a 5 to 10 minute collection to a 15, 20, 30 minute collection. They do, I think, what's that?
So I had a question about kind of data management. I would assume those weren't like attachments to a feature layer based on that. So like, what does that look like as far as managing those 360 images?
Yeah, so when we first started doing this, we did use attachments. Performance was not what we needed with that. So we found a vendor that specializes in digital asset management, so photo, video, that type of stuff. They have a really nice API that we can tie into. They provide like direct access to the geotags through the API as well. So like when I said earlier, we have these standalone versions of this application. So the points on the map you see are actually all rendered dynamically from the geotags. So there's no feature layer behind the scenes at all. It's all done from the photos which tie the application a little bit. So yeah, we use that repository. Yeah.
That program or that it's called Open Asset, and I will recommend it as a really good imagery. If you need imagery hosting, it's pretty efficient. It's cloud-based.
Any other questions? Yes.
I was curious if, future directions, LiDAR, imagery, anything like that. Are y'all working with AI or deep learning or anything like that that can do some of those assessing for cracks and so on?
So it depends on the project, but that is definitely, yeah, we just talked about that. And Sewer AI was the platform that we were talking about when we were talking about using AI. I will say that and it depends on the project, but a lot of times NASCO inspection and NASCO certified inspection is still required. So that's just a licensure that some clients are requiring for those. So in those cases, they still have to put eyes on it. But yes, for those inspections, like I said, there's a few vendors now that are specializing in that AI. We have not tried to do any of our own training at this time. So yeah, but it's coming.
I hope I didn't miss this part of the presentation, but were there other options or prototypes that you considered before you settled on this whole camera concept?
Yeah, so there's a few different, well, you might know some more too, but we have looked at a few different 360 cameras. We've tried dipping a handful down into manholes. The Ricoh Theta is the reason we like this one is the price point considering the conditions. So there are more expensive versions of them out there, but yeah, field staff and the conditions, $1,000 is a lot easier bullet to buy. So yeah, you also have to factor in the fact that a lot of times crews are carrying these. They have stuff. Yeah, so we also, that's another little side story. We again with the 3D printing, we've taken one of these and mounted it on a little sled and pulled it through like the 4-inch force main before too. So there's some other options you can do with them as well. So we've had some bad summers. So we have like a dozen of them, and we lost 3 of them one summer, which isn't great. But I think we're getting better now at managing them, and I think the big part of that was kind of limited a little bit about who was actually holding them. So yeah, it's kind of like what we learned with drones. There was a while where everyone was getting a drone, and then we're like, yeah, just a select few are good flying this thing. So.
Can you repeat that one?
Yeah. So the question is how far into the pipe we can see from, when we have it inside the manhole. So let's see if we get lucky here and find an example. And it really depends on the lighting conditions specifically, I guess. It depends on the size of the pipe a little bit. If anything that it can't get to the very bottom, unfortunately, with the zoom. Actually, there was a thing. Oh, there we go. So maybe a foot or two in this one. And in like storm structures too, I've seen it where you'll see light coming from the other end sometimes. So yeah, if you have it at the right height to the pipe, you can. And sometimes you have to just angle the lights just right and stuff. You can see probably a little bit further.
Hey, I came in a minute late, so apologize if you covered this, but are you guys, excuse me, also able to share what you guys capture here into either ArcGIS Enterprise or online? Have you guys done that for customers?
Yeah. So when we share it through any of those, basically what we do is we write kind of a link to this application into the attributes for each feature, and then usually we don't always have every feature, so we'll use like arcade expressions to render a link in a pop-up if there's a link there or a photo there, and won't be there if there aren't any photos, that type of thing. Yeah.
Any more questions? Okay, thanks, Phil. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.